Welcome back to In the Zone, live here at the Crystal City Sports Pub. I'm your host, James Flames, sitting here with the sports analyst with the what's the word for you, Jason? You have all the stats. You're the sports analyst.
All the substance.
You're wise on the substance.
Yeah.
Substance, style.
Yep.
You know.
A winning team, man. Too bad we're not. We're the exact opposite of the Redskins.
Wait till the end of this segment. We'll talk about that.
Okay.
Now it's time for Jason here to get into his Herbek hierarchy. Let's see how good you are, Jason.
All right, this is basically just the power rankings for the NFL after week 3. I got Pittsburgh at 1 right now, 3-0, using like 4-string quarterbacks. I got Indy at 2 just because they're Indy, and Rob Base on the 1s and 2s is...
Don't make Robert happy and give the Colts a shout out.
I got Houston at 3, even though they beat Indy in week 1. I just like that Indy has dominated Houston over the years, so I still like them in the end if they were to face each other in the playoffs. I got Baltimore at 4. I think they're a strong all-around team. Green Bay at 5, even though they lost last night to the Bears. I still think they're a better team than the Bears. Color got hooked up on 3 of those picks. There were penalties. I got the Jets at 6, which I hate, but I got them at 6. I got Philly at 7. Mike Vick is playing like an MVP right now. Right now I have him as my MVP of the league. I got Chicago at 8, 3-0, even though it's kind of a fluky 3-0 because Detroit should have been in week 1. Kansas City at 9, which I don't know where they came from. I don't know what's going to happen with them, but right now I got them at 9. And then I got Miami at 10, just because why not?
Just throw Miami in there for 10.
Hey, 2-1.
All right, Jason. Not a bad list, Jason. Not a bad list.
What's your top 10? What you got?
I have to correct you on one thing.
Okay.
The number 1 team that should be in your Herbek hierarchy. No, it shouldn't be Washington, okay?
All right.
I'm not that much of a homer, all right? I know the difference. The Indianapolis Colts should be number 1, in my opinion.
Yep.
Steelers, 2.
Okay.
Saints, 3. Packers, 4. Jets, 5. Okay, that's my top 5. That's my rounding out my top 5.
Okay.
Your list is okay. You had the Steelers and the Colts in there. I'm with you.
Right.
You kind of had them flip-flop. You had the Packers in there too, didn't you?
I think the only difference we had was the Saints. The reason I didn't pick them, I got them at like 11. I got them in New England at 11 and 12.
That's not bad.
And the reason that I don't have the Saints up there in the top is they barely beat San Francisco last week, who has turned out to be awful this year, which I thought they were going to run away with the NFC West. And they barely beat Minnesota in week 1, and then they lose to Atlanta at home this weekend.
Now, the worst teams. Do you have your worst teams? I have my worst teams.
Why don't you go first?
All right, I'll go 2 with the worst.
I knew
you were going to get some shot in. That's why I tried to get at you before you said it. The worst, okay? Panthers. The Panthers, to me, are the worst team. Browns, Buffalo, Lions, Oakland. Okay?
Okay.
Who do you got?
All right.
That's your 5 worst.
The worst team I got is Buffalo.
Okay. Not going to go with that.
They cut their starting quarterback after 2 or 3 weeks.
They did.
It's like,
they did.
That just proves that you don't know what you're doing.
Right.
I got Cleveland as 2nd worst. Okay. Because they're Cleveland. I got Carolina 3rd worst. Clausen, I think he'll be all right eventually, but this is essentially a lost season for them. Jacksonville, because Garrard has gone from bad to worse.
Yes.
And then I got San Francisco rounding out the top 5 because 0-3, their offense has been horrendous this year. I mean, they got blown out by Seattle, lost to the Saints, and then they lost again this week. And then I had Detroit. I know what you're saying about Detroit. They're 0-3. But I think they're a team on the rise. They're definitely one of the worst teams in the league, but I don't think they're bottom 5 because they have some promise. When Stafford comes back, they'll be a lot better. They got Calvin Johnson. Javid Best has been playing extremely well. Sue on defense. And actually, their defense as a whole has been playing pretty well. And they should have beat the Bears. They should be 1-2, but for some reason, the NFL decides that Calvin Johnson's catch for a touchdown was not a touchdown.
We have to get back on this 49ers thing a bit later. We got to move on, but I'll get back to you 49ers. They're not that bad. Record's 0-3, but they're not that bad.
They're not that good.
Michael Vick.
Yep.
Michael Vick is playing out of his mind right now. Out of his mind. He hasn't started in years, and he's playing out of his mind. I'm not a big Philly fan. I'm in it for some Redskins, NFC East.
Yeah.
But Vic is playing unbelievable. What's happened?
I think the time off, it made him realize that he needs to be a complete quarterback, study film, go through his progressions, not rely solely on his athletic ability. And it's crazy because I thought that athletic ability was going to be gone after being out of the league for a couple years.
I did too.
But it's there. But now he's not only is he just an athletic guy playing quarterback, now he's a complete quarterback. You know what I mean? He studies film. And so you add that athleticism to it. I mean, last week he had 3 passing touchdowns and a rushing touchdown on top of it. And right now he's playing like the best quarterback in the league.
Yeah. And the one thing I contribute this to is I think it could be a classic case because he's 30 years old now. Just like you said, he's passing, he's running. It could be one of these things where talent meets maturity. You know, some points in life, your maturity and your athleticism and your energy, they all come together in this one spot. Whereas you're young, you're too energetic, you know, you're old, you don't have it anymore. It could be all coming together for Michael Vick. Speaking of players that, you know, are coming together, never going to transition to players that don't have it together, Brett Favre. What?
He's just not into it this year. I mean, you know, 3 of his teammates had to go down and basically beg him to come up to Minnesota from Mississippi in the beginning of the year. I think when he signed up, he didn't realize that Harvin was going to be in and out of the lineup so much with his migraines, hip injury. You got Sidney Rice being gone for at least half the season, which forces Bernard Berrian to step up, and he hasn't done so already. And I think Favre is getting desperate. He's forcing a lot of balls that he didn't do last year like he did early in his career. I mean, really, he did in his entire career except for last year. And, you know, now he's just forcing balls, and they should be just relying on defense and running the ball with Adrian Peterson.
I'll just say this one point about Brett Favre. Brett Favre looks disinterested, he looks frustrated, he looks tentative, and he looks old. And I know one thing, that's not a recipe for any kind of success. Business, relationships. I know this. If I had a relationship and the girl was tentative, frustrated, disinterested, and old, it's over. It's not big. It's not a good relationship at all. We got to get out of here. Real quick, your Miami Dolphins. You think they're solid? What?
Yeah, I like what I've seen so far. I think this week showed that Henny's building a relationship with Marshall and the other receivers. They're really spreading the ball around. Marshall had, I think, 10 or 11 catches for 166 yards and a touchdown. They kind of got away from the run this week, but I feel overall the running game is good. Ricky's fumbling a little bit, but I'm not too worried about it. I think he'll clean it up. And Ronnie Brown is just Ronnie Brown until he gets hurt, like he does every year.
I'll give you props on one thing, Jason. Your team looks solid.
The defense is playing well, too.
Your team looks solid. That's all I'm going to say. I'm not going to give any. I'm not going to throw any shots. They look solid. So take your compliment and be good with the fact that your Dolphins are solid. Still not better than the Redskins, but we'll see. Well, not better than the Redskins.
One team is making the playoffs and one isn't.
We'll see about that, Jason,
we will.
Again. All right, on that note, we got to take another break. It's going by real quick today. When we come back, Jason and I will cover some fantasy football. You're watching In the Zone.